You are going to love creating these watercolor circles. First, let's get our setup ready for the day. You need your watercolor set, paint brushes. For watercolor, you want soft bristle brushes if you've got that, paper, something circular you can trace, and a paper towel. Oh, don't forget a small cup of water. Don't fill it too full, especially if you are painting near your computer. Let's begin by tracing a variety of sizes of circles on your paper. When you're doing this, trace it very light, as in the end, it would be great if those are not visible. You could use a roll of tape. Later in the video, I used a Gatorade lid, your coffee mug, anything circular. Trace them, variety of sizes on your paper. Then we will begin painting. Okay, there are a couple of things to remember about when you're painting with watercolor. First, watercolor paint should be transparent. That means that it shouldn't be super dark when you're painting it. That's why you need the water. So when you start off, you want to dip your paintbrush in the water, and you want to have a teeny tiny little pool of water on top of your paint. Not too much, because you don't want the water to disintegrate the paint. As you're starting, try to stay inside of the circle. Have fun doing it and just experiment as you're going. But as you see right now, this would be just a wash, meaning that it is a light value of that color. I'm going to mix it with some other colors because, let's have fun. But when you're mixing them, stick with colors that are similar. So stick with either cool colors or warm colors. So green is a cool color, and that would also include blue and purple. I always think of leaves and nature when I think of cool colors. So start off with a light value, a light wash of your color, and then you could add some other colors. Notice that you could just paint the water back on top of the paint, and that will blend it into an area that is still white. That means that there is enough pigment to spread out the paint. Whoops, I'm adding yellow. That is not a cool color. That's a warm color. Art Rebel. Experiment, see what happens. So why do you think it worked to add yellow with the green? Yellow and green are beside each other on the color wheel, and that means that they're going to mix really well together. Those would be called analogous colors. So another hint, when you're mixing colors, if they're beside each other on the color wheel, that will work well. There's one kind that's not going to work too well. You might figure it out as you're going. Hint, complementary colors don't mix well. If you've got a crayon, drawing something with a crayon can be a super fun technique because the watercolor will resist it. So give it a shot and see if you want to bring the crayon back to middle school. When you're painting, If it gets a little bit too wet, you could use a paper towel or even your finger to do a little dab-a-do, and it might make a cool texture. So experiment with that as well. Y'all, as you're painting, have fun, mix the colors, experiment, and see what happens. Also, you might want to try the dry brush technique where you don't have too much paint on your paintbrush and you just paint. It adds a little bit more texture and designs, and yeah, so that might be a fun one to try as well. Last but not least, wet on wet technique. Love this so much. Paint your area with a layer of water, then get some paint on your brush. Look at that. It explodes and makes fun, unpredictable designs. So much fun. So wet on wet, paint the area with water and then add the pigment on top and see what happens. All right, the last step. Paint the background a solid color, maybe a color that you haven't used too much of. Let it dry, and then we will move on to the last step. Hope you've had fun.